Hey friends, welcome to Prep Beacon. In this series of videos, we'll provide you with the foundation to help you succeed on your Casper test, including exam content, question types and answers, red flags, and other tips and tricks to help you succeed on test day. As for me, my name is Emmanuel, and I recently completed my first year of medical school at McGill University in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So let's just say I have a fair amount of experience when it comes to writing the Casper test. Casper, which is short for Computer-Based Assessment for Sampling Personal Characteristics, is a 90-minute online test that can be written in English or French that evaluates your social intelligence and professionalism by using numerous different real-life scenarios and problems. That being said, that was an extremely superficial definition of what the test actually is and entails, but we'll provide you with more information and details about the test along the way. It is extremely important to note that the Casper test is very important when it comes to an application for professional programs. In fact, many professional programs use the Casper test to get an idea of a candidate's personal qualities prior to being invited to an interview. That being said, we encourage you to pay close attention throughout these videos and take notes. On test day, you will encounter two types of scenarios, word-based and video-based scenarios. The scenarios will be in the form of a prompt as a text or a 60 to 90 second video, which will include ethical dilemmas that are presented to you in a realistic but likely uncommon fashion. You will then be asked a series of 3 questions that will challenge your critical thinking, reasoning, and problem-solving skills. Now, the old Casper test had 12 scenarios, 4 word-based and 8 video-based scenarios that were provided to you in random order. And each scenario had 3 questions and 5 minutes to complete. But what we really care about is providing you with the most pertinent and up-to-date information regarding the new Casper test interface, which was recently adopted for the 2022-2023 admission cycle. Now, the new test is divided into 2 sections, the first being the typed-based section, which is very much similar to the old Casper test, the only difference being that this time there are 9 instead of 12 scenarios, with 3 word-based and 6 video-based scenarios. Another difference is that after reading the text prompt or viewing the video prompt, you are given a 30-second reflection time to really gather your ideas and think about what you would say depending on which questions are presented to you. Now, you still have 5 minutes to answer all 3 questions in a given scenario. And it is also important to note that minor grammar or spelling mistakes do not count. But a little more on that later. After completing the first 5 scenarios in the first section, you are provided with an optional 5-minute break. And after completing the entirety of the first section, you are provided with an additional 10-minute optional break. The second section is the video response section, and this is new in 2022. It is comprised of 6 stations, 2 of which are word-based and 4 of which are video-based. And again, you still have 30 seconds to reflect on the prompt that you just read or viewed. The difference this time is that you are provided with 1 question. You have 10 seconds to read that question and then an additional minute to respond to that question, and you are being recorded. So it is a verbal response. It's as if you were giving an oral presentation to someone behind your computer webcam. Now, it is important to note that jargon, accents, or verbal mistakes do not count in this section, similarly to the text section where grammar or spelling mistakes do not count. However, that doesn't mean that you should disregard or not be mindful of making these mistakes. As a professional, you should strive to speak in a professional manner, and that includes making limited mistakes and avoiding the use of jargon, especially when you're talking to the general public who may not understand what you're talking about. Fortunately, each scenario is graded by a different evaluator, and this is done to minimize bias. So each scenario is graded on what is called a Likert scale, which is a psychometric scale that is used to determine the strength of your response for each Casper station. What I mean is, let's say that you provide a very, very poor response in a station, then you will score low on the Likert scale, which is a 1. And if you provide an excellent or nearly perfect response in a given scenario, then you may score as high as a 9 on the Likert scale, which is considered a perfect response or nearly perfect response. So the goal is to aim as highly on the Likert scale as you can for each scenario. Now, something that's important to note is quality over quantity. What I mean by this is that one perfect answer for a given question in an entire scenario is worth more than 3 poor answers for each question in a given scenario. Many individuals, including myself, hate leaving blanks on an exam. And if you're that kind of person, I feel for you. But what I'm trying to say is that if you do leave a blank because you answered a previous question in a station so perfectly with so much detail that you have nothing more to say and you're running out of time, then it's not the end of the world if you have 1 or 2 blanks on your Casper test. You will not be negatively penalized. Now, I'm not saying that you should strive to answer each station with 1 perfect response and leave the other 2 questions blank. At that point, you will be negatively affected. What I'm trying to say is that if it happens once or twice in the entire exam, it's not the end of the world. Another thing, watch out for red flags. Red flags can be dangerous, unethical, and unprofessional responses. Oftentimes, you may unconsciously say something that can be considered unethical or a red flag without even thinking it. And this is something you have to avoid on test day. But given the importance of this topic, we'll actually discuss it further in another video. So, with respect to your score, your final score on the Casper test is a sum of all the scores that each individual rater gave you for each individual scenario that they graded. And this score is released as a Z-score to the universities that you applied to approximately 2 to 3 weeks after you have written the test. You will also receive an idea of where you ranked in the form of a quartile approximately a month after you write the test. So a quartile represents which quarter of the population you ranked in. So what I mean is, if you ranked in the first quartile, that means that you ranked in the bottom 25% of everyone who wrote the exact same test on the exact same day and exact same time as you. What you really want to strive for is to aim for that 4th quartile, where you're in the top 25%, right? Because remember, you're applying to a super competitive professional program. And of course, you want to be the best of the best. So that means that when you're preparing for the Casper test, you should be preparing aiming for that 4th quartile. Now, the Z-score represents how well you did in comparison to everyone else who wrote the test on the exact same day and time as you. It does not represent how many right or wrong answers you got. Think about it as you got an exam and the professor gives you your class average. Say you scored an 80% on the exam and the class average was 60. Well, then you scored 20% above class average. And if this was the Casper test, then you would likely end up in the 3rd or 4th quartile, which is great. The point is, you want to do as well as possible to be as far away from the average in the positive sense and not in the negative sense. So you want to be significantly higher than the class average to maximize your chances of getting into that 4th quartile. So thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed this introductory video. We still have so much to cover regarding the Casper test, the exam content, question types and answer examples, red flags, and so on and so forth. So make sure to tune into those videos. And also, you want to make sure that you constantly consolidate your knowledge by reviewing the notes that you took from these videos, by reviewing the video study notes that are provided as a resource to this, and that you take practice tests to really get an idea of how well you would do real time on the Casper test. That being said, thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.